Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa, hello, welcome. I'm delighted to be able to host Minister Manali in Aotearoa, New Zealand this week and extend our warmest welcome to him and his delegation as friends of the Pacific whānau. The Minister had intended to visit 2 years ago and was about to board his flight before COVID-19 stopped all that. So it's great that you're able to be here, Minister, following your recent travel to New York for the United Nations General Assembly, along with your Prime Minister, who also recently joined President Biden for talks in Washington. This is the third time Minister Manali and I have met in person this year, the first being at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda, and the second at the Pacific Islands Forum in Suva, Fiji. As you're all aware, the forum meeting in Fiji reaffirmed the collective view of the Pacific that the single greatest security threat to our region is the impact of climate change. This has been a valuable opportunity to meet face-to-face and reaffirm the close partnership between our two countries and discuss matters of mutual importance. Our discussions have given us the opportunity to reflect on our shared aspirations and look towards a common purpose in our bilateral relationship and for our region. Aotearoa, New Zealand and the Solomon Islands share a long-standing and enduring partnership. We engage across a range of areas including education, forestry, fisheries, tourism, youth empowerment, health, security, infrastructure and governance. New Zealand's development partnership with the Solomon Islands, for example, is one of our most significant by breadth and funding levels, reflecting our deep commitment to this partnership. Last night, Minister Manali presented to the New Zealand Institute of International Affairs, and he was very generous with his time and his thoughts on the Solomon Islands' perspective of regional issues. He also spent a lot of time answering questions there. Fundamentally, he highlighted the most significant issue facing our region is climate change, and New Zealand agrees with that perspective. Our meeting this morning was an opportunity to discuss a range of matters across our partnership, including economic resilience and recovery, climate change, maritime security, aviation and our development partnership. I wish Minister Manali and his delegation an enjoyable visit as they meet with ministers as well as Solomon Islanders living in New Zealand and making a valuable contribution to our country, including students, community members and those taking part in the recognised seasonal employer scheme. Nō reira, nau mai, hara mai. Welcome.
Thank you, colleague Minister Mahuta. Yes, first of all, let me take the opportunity to thank you, Minister, for the kind invitation that you have extended to me to visit New Zealand. As he has said, this invitation is long overdue, 2 years. Due to COVID-19, I was unable to come earlier to travel, but we did meet in Kigali as well as at the forum in Fiji recently. So I'm delighted to be here. The last time I was here was about 8 years ago. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much, Minister, for the warm traditional ceremony that you have done this morning to welcome my delegation to New Zealand as well as to Parliament House. Truly grateful for that, as well as for the warm hospitality that your ministry in New Zealand has extended to me and delegation since our arrival on Sunday evening. Solomon Islands values its relationship with New Zealand, a relationship that goes a long way back in the 1800s through the missionaries. And that relationship continues today. I would like to take the opportunity to thank you, Minister, for the assistance and support that you have rendered to Solomon Islands over the years, and as you have rightly said, over a number of sectors in terms of education, in terms of fisheries, in terms of infrastructure, but also recently in terms of COVID support. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank New Zealand as well as our other partners in terms of COVID vaccines, but also medical equipment, and through general budget support this has really helped the Somalian government to manage and to contain COVID-19 in our country. As colleague minister has alluded to, we have a very rich bilateral discussions. Moments ago, we have covered a number of areas. One is the RSC scheme. And on that, I would also like to acknowledge and thank New Zealand for the opportunity that you are giving to our people to come and work here in New Zealand. It has not been easy the past few years because of COVID, so a number of our workers have to go back, but we are coming back. We are coming back, and we look forward to more opportunities under this scheme from New Zealand. Yesterday, I had the honor and the privilege to visit Blenheim, and catch up with some of our workers there, as well as to visit the facilities. And I'm sort of impressed with the facilities that they have out there, the hotels company. They are looking after our workers very well. So, Minister, thank you so much, as I've said, for this opportunity and the RSC scheme. This, as you know, is a part of the PACER Plus arrangement in terms of labour mobility. But on that as well, since I am now on PACER Plus, it's also important for us to further enhance our trade engagements under PACER Plus. So we look forward to working closely with New Zealand in terms of how we can further enhance those opportunities. We've also covered the matter of the need to review our air services agreement, and I think this is important. We are tasking our officials to start a conversation. We'll be writing formally to the government of New Zealand to review the air services agreement that we have between our two countries. This will not only facilitate the RSC scheme, but I hope will also facilitate the movement of investors and business people and general tourism flow between our two countries. The 2050 strategy is also important, and we cover this in our discussions. Climate change is the #1 single greatest threat, as he said, facing our region, and it is an existential threat, and one that we will continue to work together on. And this was also highlighted at the UNGA, but also at the summit in Washington, and an issue that will require the whole forum family, and that includes Australia and New Zealand, to collaborate closely with allied countries in terms of both adaptation and mitigation initiatives. We've also briefly discussed security-related arrangements. Maritime security is very important for our countries, especially in terms of addressing or combating IEU fishing. And also for us as a country, we are grateful for the ongoing support of New Zealand in terms of helping us to stabilize the domestic security environment. New Zealand has over the years contributed to that through the work of Ramsey, but also more recently under the CF arrangement, which comes under the bilateral treaty that we have with Australia. We look forward to further enhancing and deepening the bilateral relations that we have with New Zealand. And as I've said, I think one of the strategies that we are working on is how do we ensure that the private sector, through trade, through investment, and through exports, can expand on that front. Later on, I'll be having a roundtable discussion with the business partners or companies here in New Zealand, and I would like to share some thoughts with them. But I would also look forward to listening to them as to some of the areas that of importance on that space. Going forward, it's important, as he said, that we continue to engage not only bilaterally, but also regionally. And we look forward to New Zealand also helping us to advocate for us in terms of some of the issues that we are facing as a small economy, as a small country in the region. So once again, Minister, thank you so much for hosting me here in Wellington, in New Zealand, for this visit. I really appreciate our discussions this morning. And I look forward to pursuing those discussions through our officials, but also through other dialogue opportunities that we may have later. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Minister Mahuta in the Rainbow Room here at Parliament today under the portraits of New Zealand's LGBTQ+ MPs. But in the Solomon Islands, same-sex activity can be punished by 14 years in prison. How did you feel meeting in that Rainbow Room, and is your law backward?
Thank you for that important question. Solomon Islands is a young democracy, and these are issues, emerging issues that we will continue to face, and we will continue to see how best we can address within the context not only of our culture, but also within our constitution, which sets out rights and freedoms. So these are emerging issues, these are challenges that as a young country we will find ways to discuss.
Minister Mahuta, just to come into why that room, and do you see the same-sex laws in Solomon Islands as backward?
Well, that was the only room available to us to be able to use, and we wanted to ensure that we could use other venues that are a little bit more diverse in terms of hosting a meeting, and there was no specific undertonal messaging in there. I made that clear at the beginning of our meeting.
Minister Nanaia, earlier this year, leaders from New Zealand and Australia were concerned over a security pact signed between the Solomon Islands and China. Last week, we saw that the US is trying to reposition itself also in the Pacific. Where does the geopolitical alliance of the Solomon Islands lie, and is there a potential of a military base being established on behalf of China?
Thank you for that very important question. Our security framework cooperation agreement with China, and I think I've made this clear on a number of occasions, it's basically based on our national security strategy. It's domestically focused. And of course, we are guided by the existing regional security arrangements that we have in place. And these are the Bilateral Declaration as well as the Boy Declaration. I can assure you, as I've assured others, that there is no provision for a military base in that agreement. We welcome the US re-engagement with the Pacific, and we look forward to working with all our partners, My belief is this, and my hope is this, that the Indo-Pacific should be a region of peace, of cooperation, and of collaboration. And it should not be seen as a region of confrontation, of conflict, and of war.
Minister Nanaia, last night you said that the consultation in the Pacific region at an official and ministerial level could be improved. What exactly could New Zealand be doing to improve its relationship with the Solomon Islands, and could you elaborate on those comments that you made?
Thank you. I think we enjoy a very warm and cordial relationship with New Zealand. It's a special relationship that goes way, way long back. Of course, there are always opportunities and rooms for improving relations, not only with New Zealand, but also with our other partners in the region. And I think we've discussed this in Kigali, that I think there is more that we can do in terms of probably more high-level visits, engagements between our countries, not only at the officials level, but also at the ministerial level and at the leaders level. And your Prime Minister has an invitation to my Prime Minister to visit New Zealand in the near future, and my Prime Minister is looking forward to visiting New Zealand in the near future.
Well, New Zealand's been a long advocate for the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, and our stance has been well articulated over a number of years. It is concerning.
We share the same position that the Minister has alluded to. It is a concern and one that we condemn.
Well, again, with anything that impacts in the Pacific, you would expect Pacific nations to have a view on. By and large, having any type of nuclear activity in our region will be a matter of high concern. If the extent of the reports are that, as you have said, again, we've been in a bilateral over the last 30 minutes, so I would want to be fully appraised of the matter that you've raised with us. But at a general, principled level, New Zealand has been a long advocate of non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, and our view has been well established over a long period of time.
The Japanese government had to warn their citizens to take shelter.
Well, I'll certainly make sure I get it fully appraised. Again, we've been in a bilateral over the last 45 minutes, so we would want to make sure that we have a response appropriate to the principal position that we've always taken.
Minister Mahuta, what's the status of the discussions around the potential maritime security arrangement between New Zealand and Solomon Islands, and what benefit would it provide to Solomon Islands?
Well, the discussions at a regional level are within the context of the Pacific Island Forum and the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific, who by and large have identified that maritime security, including the surveillance of illegal, unreported and unregulated activity in the region, is a matter of high concern. Beyond that, we continue to work with our Pacific partners to address those sorts of issues in terms of maritime surveillance in relation to fisheries and in relation to the security arrangements that we have, which are guided by the Boe and the Bilateral Declaration.
Sorry, just to be clear, Defence Minister Nanaia has spoken specifically of discussions between New Zealand and Solomon Islands about assuming there's some sort of bespoke partnership agreement or something being worked on. Is that in train, or is that...
Well, the detail of that will be a matter for our defence ministers, but as I say, at a foreign affairs level, the nature of our conversations lifted up are about the regional interest in relation to our maritime security and also maritime surveillance issues.
Minister Nanaia, it was widely reported that Solomon Islands was not going to sign up to the US Pacific Agreement, and then you ended up signing the agreement. What changed your mind?
In the initial draft, there were some references that we were not comfortable with, but then the officials, under the discussions and negotiations, we were able to find common ground, and then that took us on board, so we signed.
What specifically were you uncomfortable with?
Basically, in terms of our views on foreign policy in the region, the Indo-Pacific, as I've said, our position on this, as I've said, should be a region of peace, cooperation, and collaboration. And there were some references that that put us in a position that we will have to choose sides, and we don't want to be placed on a position that we have to choose sides. So there was understanding, and there is understanding on that, and the draft was accommodative, and we signed on to it.
References to China specifically?
Indirectly.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister.